Welcome back to Issues of Faith. We are talking with the author of a new book, The American Dream in Tennessee, Stories of Faith, Struggle, and Survival. The author, Dr. Manny Sethi, Vanderbilt orthopedic trauma surgeon, who's really talking about the role our faith plays in our health and our recovery. And is this something that our healthcare community is talking enough about, in your opinion?
Unfortunately, no. I think this is something that we really need to talk more about. You know, right now, I think American medicine and medicine in our country is incredible, and we can do incredible things. But I think that there is so much more to a patient's life that we haven't thought about, and factors that drive outcome and how you do. You know, the very powerful role of faith. And another thing that I don't think is talked about enough is family. In my practice, you see sometimes folks who they just have injuries that are mind-blowing, and you start to think, well, you know, this is the downslide of this person's life. This is where things are going to go bad, and you just see them do so well, and I think part of that is, you know, obviously faith is what we're talking about, but part of that is this very loving family that you have, you know, around a patient. And you see the difference when, for example, you have somebody who doesn't really have anybody who cares for them. Maybe they have an injury that is not as severe, even something as simple as an ankle fracture, and you see how it devastates their life because they just don't have that support network, you know. And as a person, I'll tell you, my father, when I was younger, was very sick, and I just remember how much my mother did to help and how supportive we tried to be as kids, staying in the hospital with him, had to have multiple blood transfusions, you know, and I think it's partly there where I picked that up and learn that power. But just as a doctor now on the ground, I see that, you know. And the other thing I would just say is really having a community around folks to help them. You know, for example, I run this nonprofit called Healthy Tennessee, and we do preventative health outreach across the state. We have developed this really incredible model now where we go to places and it's local communities helping their own folks, screening patients, etc. But I think that power of community and having a network of people to support you beyond your family, whether that's your church community, whatever that is, I think that is so important. And
it gives you an internal strength, you think? It gives people a reason to fight harder?
Absolutely.
You need that sort of internal desire to heal.
Absolutely.
And you see, I guess, both sides.
Absolutely.
People that have that and people that don't.
That's right.
So with this book, again, 8 cases you highlighted. You talked about one earlier. Is there an example? I'll ask for a couple examples, but let me ask: is there an example of somebody maybe who didn't have a lot of faith, then they found faith because of their injury, and that you feel like made a difference?
Yes, absolutely. There is a patient in the book named Brian, and Brian was from West Virginia, and he moved here and had a lot of problems with drugs and alcohol. Was severely injured on the job. He was on a 40-foot roof, and that day they had changed the safety mechanisms, and he was on the roof with his brother, and to save his brother, he actually, they were both about to fall, but he saved his brother, and he fell, and he had just a devastating injury of his leg. And so he came in, he had just a mangled leg. And frankly, we thought he was going to lose it, but he fought back through multiple surgeries. And I would just say in the beginning of that, you know, his marriage he was having a tough time in his marriage. He really hadn't found faith. I think he had been to church when he was younger, but really through this process, he found his faith, and you could see that even in the way he talked and the way he spoke over time, you know, saying things to me like, you know, it's God's plan, what happens to me, but he made it through. We saved his leg, and through multiple procedures. Today, he's doing very well. He's back on his feet. His marriage is intact. His family is intact. So I think that, you know, it's faith journeys like that that really are incredible, and that's why I think he did so well, is that he really found meaning. And I think in general, at times like this, it's hard to to find meaning. So, for, in my own life, when I lost my father, I was a medical student, and it was very hard for me to reconcile what had happened. And when I found my faith again, it really helped me through to realize what my purpose was in life, to be a doctor, to come home back to Tennessee, and to make a difference. And I just think that having something to hold on to is just so important, and to keep the faith.
And this may be a tough question, and I guess
Sure.
it's more your opinion. Is it a psychological advantage to healing to believe in something greater, or do you think there are cases where the hand of God comes down and actually heals? I mean, so people would be on both sides
Sure.
of that. But what do you think is at play?
I think I'm a big believer in the hand of God. I think there are just Jamie Simmons, who I was telling you about earlier, the gentleman who got hit by a van, and had 22 surgeries, in his back now, building tour buses. I just don't think that that's me who did that. I mean, I played a role, but I also would say that if you have faith, if you have a loving family, and you have a community that supports you, I think psychologically that does do something. That does help you, and that's important. So I think that faith, has. I think there are multiple things that faith can do to help in healing and recovery. But yes, I do also think that there is a higher power.
And so you said we don't talk about it enough in our healthcare system. What would you like to see going forward? How could we better talk about it? Can hospitals do more? How could we better talk about it? I guess it's tough if you've been hit by a bus.
Yeah.
To have someone come in and say, believe in God and you'll feel better. I don't know, but what do we need to do?
I think for people who want to talk about it, I think they should be allowed to talk about it. Let me give you one example. There was a lady when I first, I grew up in Hillsborough, Tennessee, which is about an hour down the road, and my parents are immigrants and came here. And so when I first got back, about 6 months in, there was a patient who was actually a patient of my mother and father's who had gotten injured. And she saw me, she's like, your last name is very familiar. And I was like, oh, and we realized this connection. And I remember she gave me this knitted little card that said Jesus on it. It was a green and white. And she asked me, she said, will you just put this in your pocket when you take me to the operating room today? And
Wow.
And I still have it. And I think that patients should feel more able to be able to live their faith when they get injured, and to I think that, and to discuss it. I think we should allow it. I don't think we necessarily have to promote it, but I think that we need to just let people know that that's okay. And I think more holistically, I think we have to, again, start thinking about these things, because I just don't think that it's putting plates on broken bones that is going to heal a person. I think it's so much more than that. I think it's that faith component, their wife, their husband, their kids, their mom and dad, that community around them. And I think that we really need to start thinking more holistically. And again, after writing this book, I will tell you, it is so incredible to see somebody, but then to spend 3 years with them, and you see them as a totally different individual. Now, I'm not saying that you can do that for every person, but to some degree, to learn their life stories and who they are and try to help them through understanding that, I think that's very important.
I think for some doctors that might be scary to
Yeah.
get to know them too well.
Yeah,
There's just so much at stake. But you think that's a helpful, positive thing?
I think it's a very powerful thing, but it's also a personal thing. In this sort of 3-year journey I took, I started to think about, why did I become a trauma surgeon? Like, why did I do that? And why do I feel such a connection with these patients? What is it about them, specifically these 8 folks? And I think in my own life, it was really, the power of faith, my loving family, and this small community in Hillsborough, Tennessee, that kind of gave the, child of 2 immigrants a chance, And so I think that it's a personal thing. to do that. But I think to some degree we need to do it more.
And that is interesting. I mean, the title of the book, The American Dream in Tennessee, you talk about these 8 patients, but you also talk about your life.
That's right, yeah.
And how you did become a orthopedic trauma surgeon. And that's quite a journey.
Oh, yes, it is.
And
Yes.
now, so I guess we have about 2 minutes left. Describe that part of this book.
Sure. Well, I just sort of talk about my family's journey from India. I was born in Ohio, but we came to Tennessee when I was 3 years old. So I lived in Hillsborough, Tennessee, and really, went to a very small school there, and was with folks who, they didn't have a lot, but they had each other, and they really taught me about the power of community, the power of family, and the power of faith. And if it wasn't for this small town, I wouldn't be here today. And that's why I called it the American Dream in Tennessee. I think that, what we have in this state is very special. Is this people helping people, and this level of family support, and this level of faith, frankly, that I don't think you find other places.
That can really help improve people's health and chances for recovery. Thank you very much, Dr.
Thank you so
Manny
much.
Sethi, Vanderbilt orthopedic trauma surgeon, and his new book, The American Dream in Tennessee, Stories of Faith, Struggle, and Survival. Thank you for being here. Thank all of you for watching Issues of Faith. Have a great day, everybody.